anything, they can change their mind on a dime and say, well, actually, we are going to buy more Bitcoin.
with
Yeah.
the Doge savings.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
know
know
what they
they
said.
said.
They,
And
well, they
then
said
that-
budget neutral
Yeah.
way,
And then that
to,
pushes the price up, and then
Yeah.
everyone, and I think that's how we sort of get the blow off top on this cycle at least.
Well, budget neutral, like, I mean, right after that like came out, like Dylan Leclerc, Michael Saylor, they're all at him like, hey, I know some budget neutral. It's like, bro, I got so bullish when I read that. I was like,
Yeah.
because they're literally already doing it. It's just now the government is just gonna figure out all this. Basically, I mean, it's awesome in terms of like, if you're,
I think it struck the right balance. I think it respected the current executive order.
An interesting parallel here is that JFK was the youngest president,
Wow.
assassinated at age 46. He was the youngest president at the end of his tenure, and his lifespan was the shortest of any president.
interesting. How old
Great
is
Moreno.
JD Vance right now? Do you know?
It's a good question. He's only 40, yeah. So
Interesting.
theoretically, JD Vance could be the youngest president ever elected.
I honestly, I think that's what our country needs.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I think Trump did much better this time around, is because he, like,
Mhm.
JD Vance was a stud on like the campaign trail. Like he was got his point across, respectful. Like he is what like most Americans want to be like this day
Yeah.
and age, right? And the
Yeah.
fact that he's with like Trump said, hey, I want to like I'm realizing that I need to be like who I surround myself is very important with. But like we need someone that's younger. Like
Yeah.
for me, like, okay, say Biden, for example, it's the same freaking Keynesian economics thinking. It's like, well, I'm not going to be here down the road to think it doesn't bother. It's not like, it's not going to affect me.
Yeah.
But when you have somebody that's 40 years old, and let's say 44, JD Vance becomes president, the rest of his life, he's going to be like, have like to deal and live
With the repercussions
what
of,
he did.
of,
It's like,
of what his decisions were.
and so you have like, I don't know, like, it's interesting. So I'm all for people that way younger, and I'm also for term limits and all that other shit. Like, and
Mhm.
I mean, I would change almost everything about our government if I could.
Yeah. That's funny. Hey, Paul, scroll up a little bit. Let's see what we got here for some takes. Keep going up. So what do you guys think about the Smith-Mundt Act? So this basically,
I
The
love
Smith-
Michelle's take on this.
yeah, this is some interesting stuff. I mean, like, I guess the Smith-Mundt Act essentially made it basically illegal for our intelligence agencies to like propagandize us. Like, it still allowed like us to like run psyops on all these other countries and stuff, but it was like, hey, you cannot do that to the citizens of your country. You can't lie and do all this phony bullshit, all the shit that we've been seeing happening in the media.
And you're
from-
saying that got taken away? Like that's
yeah.
that's not in law right now.
Yeah, I guess they under Barack Obama they did all these changes, and then they basically allowed them to to propagandize us. I mean, look, calling the Wuhan lab leak a conspiracy theory. Like, these are examples of
Yeah.
these intelligence agencies, Hunter Biden's laptop. Like, they're probably operating thinking like, oh, it's okay. This law is gone now, so
Yeah.
we're essentially allowed to like lie. And
How did they
propaganda.
get that passed?
I
So,
have
like,
no idea exactly what, all the like how they got all this stuff through. But Elon's saying restore the act because the act essentially
of
made it
course.
so they couldn't. But it's a great little 5-minute clip of, Rogan and Mike Benz talking about this. And Mike Benz really explains it and goes into detail about it. Paul, we can put this in the show notes, that link, if people want to watch it. It's about 5 to 10 minutes long, so we're not going to unpack it all here. But very, very interesting little
it's
tidbits.
just wild that they
Yeah.
took out something that was already in law that allowed them.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, it's no surprise. I mean, they allowed.
makes
Look at
sense,
the
yeah.
Patriot Act. They allow us to spy on American citizens now. All this stuff, like, basically violating our constitutional rights. But this is just an example of our own taxpayer dollars paying to fucking psyop us. Which I'm sure if the people can pick that, I'm sure nobody wants that. Everybody wants to not be lied about. This was an interesting one. Did you guys read this Eric Weinstein? I think this was from the JFK files being released. But this is wild. So he said, learning a lot, or maybe I am just getting confused. I will take this down if it is all wrong. There just isn't a lot of guidance as to what I'm looking at. Am I to understand that King Abdullah of Jordan has a Jewish brother? Because the CIA procured a Jewish starlet for King Hussein, that can't be right. Or that the CIA will build an entire set in the United States from a photograph of a room taken in Moscow, hire actors and actresses that resemble both foreign leaders and their female associates, and shoot naughty short films in L.A. to look for a tryst that took place in a room in Russia to make it look like. Scroll down. So this is like the documents. I guess what they did here, if you read through this whole thing, I mean, it kind of just talks about what they did. in the interest of national security, they were basically trying to get leverage of, basically a phony sex scandal. But what they did was, instead of actually trapping the guy and using a honeypot girl or whatever, they set up essentially a porn studio in LA, and they found two people that looked like, the asset that they were trying to, I think this was like the Soviets, that looked just like the guy and just like one of his underlings or his female workers or whatever. And then they tried to shoot it they made the room look exactly like the room from a photo, and they tried to turn it into a a fake sex tape to use it as blackmail. So that's some crazy shit, right? So the logic of what these intelligence agencies will do and the lengths they'll go to, it's we're supposed to be the shining beacon on the hill. This is the type of shit that we're doing. If you can't win your argument out in the open and convince people properly, with evidence and information and by being transparent,
that would be literally illegal for you or I or anyone else in this
oh
room
yeah,
to do.
I mean, this is
but they're allowed to do illegal things legally.
Yeah. I mean,
they have too much power to
yeah.
get away with, and then obviously there was corruption going on there.
Yeah, crazy. It just shows you it's hard to trust stuff, right? What can you actually trust?
Bitcoin.
It's very it's difficult, right? Yeah, Bitcoin has this it's truth money, right? It's really what it is.
I like this comment here.
Which comment?
Want to read it?
Let's see.
This one.
I'm surprised. Oh yeah, this is a good comment. I'm surprised you're confused by this. You're just now learning what the CIA is. Operation Phoenix, MK Ultra, Ajax, Zapata, Paperclip, Mongoose, Belt, Chaos, Iran-Contra, and hundreds or thousands more. So yeah, it just goes off all these, stuff that's getting declassified, years and years later. The crazy extent that some of these intelligence agencies will go to, right? And again, this isn't
Black
just
Lives Matter.
Yeah, this is
coming
just
up soon.
Yeah, this isn't just the CIA and our intelligence. I mean, obviously, the KGB, all these other countries have intelligence agencies. Israel, Mossad, all doing very similar things, right? We're all nobody's innocent, right?
Of course.
It's everybody, everybody can't throw stones because they're living in a glass house. That's the logic here. So who killed JFK? Has anyone fed the files to Grok? I think I clicked on that yesterday, and it just said somebody fed the files in, and initially, and Grok was just yeah, myocarditis.
Must have been really bad. Made his head explode.
Has anyone led the files to Grok? I think I read that Grok just said hey, there's really not much here. There's just a lot of all sorts of nothing earth shattering or groundbreaking.
I read some other things or came across some other things that were interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting stuff.
The CIA, days after.
Yeah, this one right here. This was the not this one. Go up. It's that one. They're both the same. This one right here. This John Garrett Underhill. Paul, I sent you a this to me. Everything I looked through was the most interesting that I found. But I think this sheet has already been released earlier. But there was 7 more files with it that I hadn't read yet. Yeah, so I think I sent you the link of that, Paul, to kind of look it over and go through it. But I guess it will take a while to read all the pages. But it just was this guy Gary Underhill was acting very suspicious, and then they ruled that he committed suicide, and I guess he had some information. He was an intelligence agent during World War II, and I guess kind of what he was getting at when they were doing these investigations was that Kennedy was he basically claimed that Kennedy was killed by a small group of people within the CIA, right? So just due to the nature of how the CIA and these intelligence agencies operate, where there's really no transparency, no accountability. You've got all these little cliques within it that don't talk to each other.
There's human beings.
Yeah. Hey, is there a mole in this fucking organization? And this guy's not sharing with this guy, and this guy thinks it's just the whole thing is I don't even think it should exist.
Yeah, well, when you start putting literally humans
Yeah.
into these situations,
Yeah.
that is the whole foundation of humans, Adam and Eve, right? If you really take it down to first principles, we just that's just in our nature to do shit like that. So no matter what business or whatever it is, including our government, it happens in everything. You start a business, you get one person in there, they can spread. So it's just the foundation.
It's kind of like this guy who tried to take out Trump the first time at the rally and missed. It was he instantly dies, and obviously he did it, but he instantly, they shot him, they killed him. He had I think they said they found multiple. He had bank accounts in other countries, and he was shooting at the range where
The second person was even crazier.
Yeah, I
you remember how he lived in Ukraine. Like,
Oh, that guy, yeah.
that guy, his story was even weirder.
Yeah, he was
And
collected to all the intelligence agencies. So it's like and you look at like MK Ultra and all the stuff that's been declassified. Like I think that if these intelligence agencies are involved with this, they're using these patsies, right? Like these Oswald, a guy who's a little unstable and like he's kind of crazy, and he's and the same thing with like Charles Manson. If you look at the MK Ultra stuff and all the connections to the same doctors, I think Rogan's gone in deep detail about this, about how like he was seeing the same doctor who was a CIA asset, and they were doing all these experiments. And I think this is like, if the CIA is involved, it's through this like kind of plausible deniability where they kind of have these assets like Oswald or like this guy, this kid or whatever who did the Trump thing. And they kind of just like
they set it up from.
They kind of set it up, and they hey, we're gonna use this encrypted chat to talking to these guys for years, training with them. Hey, you're doing a mission. We can't talk about it, kind of thing. Like that's kind of how I think about it, right? Like. And I think that there is circumstantial evidence for that. I don't know if there's a smoking gun. Like I haven't, from the evidence that was released and what I've looked at, there's no smoking gun there. There's just more kind of circumstantial evidence that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense.
Do you guys have any other takes on that, or did you come to the same conclusion? Was this like total evidence for you? Like where are you at on the spectrum?
On the JFK stuff or on the Trump thing?
On everything.
On everything.
Yeah. JFK specifically, though, we're kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know, like how you ever get to the bottom of it. I guess for me, it's always asking, like, well, even if they are doing stuff, why?
Yeah.
Why are they doing it? Is it just for complete control over the society?
So,
or is it like,
well, there was a lot of stuff going on.
We could figure this out, and we probably know that it's
maybe it was
dirty business, but why are they doing it? Well,
yeah.
Why are they doing it? And I
money.
think.
So the best argument I ever heard, I can't remember if it was Mike Benz or if it was somebody else on Rogan's podcast at some point that was talking about like trying to put yourself in these like if the CIA did kill JFK, like here's the logic behind it, right? Like here's what they're thinking, right? So my understanding was that like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we were we were dealing with after World War II. Our main enemy was kind of Russia. It was like the Cold War, right? Communists versus the capitalists, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of stuff that JFK did, reaching out to the communists, like trying to he even said like, hey, we're on the brink of World War III here. Like he opened a private line because he knew his phones were tapped by the intelligence agencies, right? Like he wanted to talk. I think it was at the time, was it Khrushchev or who was his counterpart? Was it Gorbachev or Khrushchev? I can't remember exactly who the counterpart in Russia was, but he had opened up this private line of communication to say, hey, like, look, we don't want a war here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's try to at least have a relationship like where we don't have to go to war. You know, like I can't trust what I'm hearing from my intelligence agencies. I'm sure you feel the same way. And indeed, those conversations did exist. I think RFK Jr. has talked about talking about to his uncle about it or reading the notes or like that actually happened. So I think if you're in the CIA, you're thinking, why is the president trying to hide from us? Why is he talking to the enemy? Right? So you've got this kind of like, maybe he is a fucking mole. Maybe he is the enemy, right? He only had to go he's only 40-something years old. He got elected, but like he's connected to the mob in fucking Chicago. He got, all this stuff, right? Like his election came through, and I think the mob delivered I want to say it was like Chicago or something. They delivered something for him where they like held the vote until after all the other votes came, and like you can look into that whole thing. But like, obviously we've seen how easy it is for these swing state cities that are just like one party locations where they lock it all down and like, hey, we're counting votes for fucking like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month after the election. Like they're still coming in. We got to go. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen how corrupt and how fucked up that whole situation is. Imagine how it was, even back like 40, 50 years ago when the mob really was in control and they had these unions and all this stuff and, no voter ID, which is how it is in most of these, corrupt blue swing state cities. So in my mind, I can see like why the CIA would be like, we don't trust this guy. He might be an enemy. If we have to kill the president to save America, we're going to do it, right? Like that's the ends justify means logic. I'm sure it's not everybody in the CIA that felt that way.
Of course,
it was a small group of people. Maybe
they're people.
Exactly right. So if that's the case, that would be the rationale and understanding of it, and they would have used a way where they wouldn't be associated. They would have kind of done it through these other guys like Oswald, who they kind of
And didn't like JFK want like no war? Isn't that like
Yeah.
And if
Well,
somebody, he didn't want the war and he was against the war, and that goes against the incentives to print more money for war, because war is basically an endlessly way to continue to print more and more money.
yeah, there's
And
that element of it for sure.
like, but those at the end of the day, it always comes down to the money. So the money itself, like he was literally standing in the way
yeah.
of the potential, like, and so it'd be very interesting to hear. Like,
So there's that aspect of it, and there's one thing else I just remembered that I had forgot about. It was like the whole Bay of Pigs fiasco, and that they initially had this whole plan to go topple the communists in Cuba, and JFK had essentially said like, hey, we don't want any, like he approved the plan, but he said no American people will be on the ground, no military support, like we're not putting our people in harm's way. And eventually, I believe it came out that they disobeyed him, and they actually did put some of our people in harm's way. I think that was the problem.
well, if that was the case,
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, well,
so they
everything
kind of
else. Sorry, if they disobeyed the sitting president in
Yeah.
terms of not putting troops, and it's like, all right, well, that
we're
is
seeing that
true.
now too. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that. Like all these, people are just disobeying. They're part of they're under
course.
the purview of the executive branch, and they're just disobeying, orders. Right? There was a whole standoff that happened a couple days ago with one of these, Institute for Peace or some shit had armed guards outside of their thing, trying to prevent, and like eventually they had to they came and like physically removed these people who were
They
like,
want
hey,
peace so much they'll
Yeah.
start a fight.
yeah, exactly. So it was so basically I think there were elements of people within the CIA that when the Bay of Pigs failed, they felt that Kennedy had pulled support for their plan, and I guess people had died in the agency, so they kind of initially were like, this fucking president's the enemy. That was kind of the logic. Our people died on the ground here, and this mission failed because of him, right? And the other side of the story is kind of like from Kennedy's point of view, which is like, hey, you guys botched this operation. Why are we putting our troops in harm's way? So you can kind of see the two sides where they were very much thinking through this Cold War mindset, right? So you really have to like put yourself in the perspective of the people at the time. They thought like, hey, like World War II had just ended, like within the past couple decades, and like World War II almost like ended the world in a lot of people's minds.
Well, that's
like,
the
hey,
most generous take I've
yeah.
heard on the CIA, but I
That's
think it's the most realistic,
That's
to be honest.
that's because I always try to figure out like, hey, what is the actual human motivation here? Like, what would make sense? Why would you try to eliminate a very popular president, right? And maybe they felt that like, hey, this president is going to, cause us to
And they
lose the
just
Cold
truly
War
be-
or potentially
truly
put us at
believed it, and it's like-
weakness. Yeah,
That was like
Yeah.
their one angle that made
Yeah.
sense to them. It makes sense. I mean, it's just, again, it's one of those things like,
yeah. I mean, we're never really going to know. I don't think. I think we just have to, use the logic and reason and think through and try to make sense of it all. Right.
at the end of the day, like the JFK files and all this shit getting redacted,
Mhm.
nothing has changed, like in terms of how I think about the government. Like it's, what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it's
yeah.
still, I feel the exact same way as I did before. Nothing's gonna change that because
Yeah.
how our government is set up. It's literally just like how money printing is baked into the cake. It's
Yeah.
literally baked into the cake in our system. It's
Yeah. I mean, the founding fathers had no intention of all these organizations that they
Correct.
never authorized to exist. I
they
mean,
literally were against the central
Yeah.
freaking bank.
yeah,
They like in the
Yeah,
you
you're
know what I
right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
in the Constitution, they're against it, and yet
Yeah.
we literally have one now.
yeah,
And it's not a government agency. It's called the Federal Reserve, and it's like
Yeah.
I feel like if I can go back in time, or in my next life,
Mhm.
I'll be a teacher that just teaches kids about the Federal Reserve, because like once you realize like that, it's like whoa. Like if you could learn, if they taught, obviously they'll never teach that, but if they taught that at a young age, like wait, America wasn't perfect. Like the fact that it's
Yeah.
not abolished yet, it's very interesting.
We need an ABCs for
Yeah.
public schools, just so we can be taught the basics. Of
yeah. The education system is so fucking broken right now. I mean, you've got these activists going on about the Department of Education, like screaming about having everything, like more money just keeps being thrown at them, and like test results for kids.
We're
and,
like the dumbest
it's
country.
getting
in the,
it's
like, I'm- like I
ridiculous.
know it's a little exaggerated,
just
but we're very
insane.
dumb as a country.
It's absolutely insane.
Like
Totally insane.
Yeah, China's very smart.
Yeah.
Like
Crazy. Yeah, this is right here. This is a great one. Every single time we're on our way to freedom. This is a great meme. We're on our way to freedom. Just add a little government and crap. You've got 50,000 different agencies, full on like SWAT teams and everything. Just kind of funny. All right, take us to the top, Paul, and let's see some recent takes here. Let's see here. Oh, this is an interesting one. Elon Musk. It turns out when you take away people's money, they're receiving fraudulently, they get very upset. They basically want to kill me because I'm stopping their fraud, and they want to hurt Tesla because we're stopping this terrible waste and corruption in the government. I guess they're bad people, and bad people will do bad things.
Literally.
Yeah,
That's
it's
such a
literally what
perfect
it is.
con-
Kind of crazy. Hey, find the Tim Walls post. I reposted. I had a comment on it. Find my take on that. That was I don't know where I posted it or saved it. It's probably closer to the top.
If you bookmarked it, just press Control F and type in walls. It'll go right to it.
Will it? Okay. God, there's so many takes. It's just impossible to get to all this stuff.
Paul, hit Control F, Paul.
Yeah, hit Control F real quick. Control F.
Press Control F. Yeah, and then type in his name.
No, Wall.
No, Wall.
Hey, you can do Maddie because
no,
that was my
no,
post.
It'll be
Yeah, I had a commentary on it. Waltz. No, Paul doesn't know how to spell. We can't do that. Got to give him a subtle needle. It did have when you searched my name. It
While you're
up.
looking, did anyone watch the Andrew Schultz stand up on Netflix?
No, but I think go to that location.
Highly recommend.
Yeah,
It
I think
is
he's hilarious. I like
that one is hilarious.
I think he is so good at it won't take you to the actual. There it is. Here it is. So I couldn't believe this. I thought this was a parody at first. I couldn't believe this was real. Right? Like we've got this individual who could have been the vice president and potentially one heartbeat away from being the president of the United States, coming on X and posting, if you need a little boost during the day, check out Tesla stock, and then with a down arrow. Imagine celebrating the stock price of an American company that literally employs tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people who all have equity in the company, right? Like Elon's famous for giving stock shares to his employee. Like that's like his compensation plan. He's like, hey, you work here because you believe in the company. We're going to give you ownership equity in the company that's producing all this. And like that's why he's had such a loyal group of people that work for him throughout the years, right? Like he gives them ownership equity. He gives the workers ownership of the actual company they're working for. And so like this idiot, this moron thinks that you're hurting Elon, who's a billionaire and has like 5 successful companies. Like, no, you're hurting the tens and thousands of people and families that own this company. It's just insane.
It's the same
So I
shit
said,
in another. It's always
imagine celebrating the destruction of an American company that has done more for the climate. That's a whole other aspect of it than any other company in history. It employs tens of hundreds of thousands of Americans who are compensated with stock equity in the company by the leadership. You have lost the plot, Tim, and everything wrong with America today. I mean, like, imagine if this fucking clown was the vice president of the United States of America. I mean, that is like I don't think I've ever seen that. Like something like that.
The fact that he was there, honestly, I feel like they wanted to lose.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't have ran a worse candidate. They couldn't have ran a worse and this guy was just caught in lie after lie after lie, and it's like, dude, you're a fraud. Like you literally lied about
people just
everything.
Yeah, people just rejected this insanity. I mean, you have this guy who has dementia who's not even signing any of his own documents.
He's fine.
That was
He's
Biden. They said
fine.
he was fine for years, and then when you saw him on TV, you're like, this guy can't even form a sentence.
You go to see the
Trump,
table
like-
and you're fucking pissing on his face in the urinal.
Dude, that's crazy. Crazy.
Love it. Shout out, see the table.
Oh my goodness. But the whole thing is just insane. I mean, like it's like a clown show, and then they've got Communist Kamala, like who's just literally ran the border into the ground. She was the border czar. Then they said she wasn't the border czar, even though they screenshotted the documents of her saying like she's the border czar from the White House.
Did you vote for her in the primaries?
Did I vote for her in the primaries?
No one did.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, there's no primaries. They just inserted
That's how
her.
dumb they think they're fucking following it.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
hey,
the whole thing was just insane. And then they got this guy, and this guy's like lying about going to war, lying about being lying
a
about
coach.
everything, right? But this just shows you the clown show of what we're living in today. Like I just can't imagine.
Did the stock rip right after he wrote this?
I don't know, but I just think like just the fact that he would cheer the downward stock price of an American company, and it just blows my mind. Just crazy to me. Crazy.
It is, but it's just like what do you expect?
Yeah. Look at this. This is wild chart. Trump closing our border in 48 hours is not being discussed enough. We are now on pace for the fewest illegal border crossings in 50 plus years, immediately after 4 years of record-breaking illegal immigration. Biden could have done this at any time. Where's the accountability? Yeah, the big lie was that we need to pass legislation to solve this problem that we created. And most of the legislation was like, the narrative at the time was like, oh, the
literally
Republicans
created a
voted
problem.
against this. You created a problem, and then within
You
the
created a
legislation, it
problem
was
just
like,
so you could find a solution. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be there's a problem. Let's
Yeah.
find the solution.
that's what did. That's the whole problem with big government, all this bullshit. You know, they literally, and then in the bill, it was like all this money that was being sent to Ukraine, and like none of it was for the border. It's just like classic Washington, right? But like this is truly astounding. I mean, like we literally went from like the highest level of, you know, border patrol illegal crossings to go down to like literally the lowest and like almost recorded history here. This is very wild.
They're pretty on par with what happened during his first couple of years in
Yeah.
office. But it's like, I mean, that was to me that is one of the biggest issues, and I'm glad Trump won because of that. Because at the end of the day, if you play out the illegal immigration on a long enough time frame, and if you allow it to continue, like this is why Elon Musk got involved. If the Democrats would have won, who else? How many others would they have let in? Who are those people voting for?
Yeah.
And then are they going to continue coming in? They're going to continue to have kids. They're going to, and then
Well,
all
the
of a
crazy
sudden,
thing is the taxpayers now are funding all this. I mean, USAID was literally taking hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, and just
yes, they were
funding.
They were paying for this to happen.
Yeah, it's just
that was
insane.
their
yeah,
plan.
this is a design. It was all by design.
But that would have been
I
a
mean,
very scary,
insane.
scary
Yeah.
place, knowing that the Democrat Party would always be in power because who is the fabric of our community.
Welcome to California.
Yeah, fuck California. I'm going there.
I'm Judge Douglas Hogan. I gave 3 illegal aliens probation for raping a 14-year-old. I mean, this is the incompetence of the people.
They
we're
get
dealing
more
with.
than the citizens.
Yeah, it's
literally
just insane.
They are treated better than like our own
Yeah.
fellow citizens. It's
Yeah.
insane.
It's insane. Hey, Paul, let's pull up the next take here. Let's see here. Yeah, this was a whole nother thing too. Is like they try to come after Sachs, but Sachs is smart enough to he head him off to even begin with. Play this whole clip from the beginning.
Well, Laura, I was at the State of the Union, and I was up in the balcony. I was looking down at the Democrats holding up these silly little signs. And the sign that I saw the most was one that said, Musk steals. And I really thought about that, which is, how is Elon stealing? He's returning money to the Treasury. And then it hit me. They actually have come to believe that this taxpayer money is theirs. And by returning it to the Treasury, Elon is stealing from them. That's my best explanation of why they're in such a hysterical state about this. But of course, Elon isn't stealing anything. He is making sure that the federal government is taking good care of our money and that we're not wasting it. It's not going to corruption or fraud. And I think that just has the swamp in an absolute tizzy because he, along with the president and at the president's direction, they are draining the swamp. Well, Laura, I was at the State of the Union and I was up in the balcony. I was looking down.
It's absolutely insane. Like the logic, the fantasies that they spin in their heads. I mean, it's like, they're doing something and they start accusing you of doing what they're doing. It's like they're taking taxpayer money, stealing it, funding, all their little NGO slush funds. And like, we're like, hey, we're not going to take taxpayer money anymore and fund the sedentary lifestyle of migrants from Lesotho or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
Like all this made up, probably just straight up theft that
They're
like,
literally
lying.
They're typing into Grok or ChatGPT, hey, help me create a very inefficient company. That's literally like, they are literally the most like inefficient thing. Like everything about it is just like inefficient. When did efficiency become a bad thing?
Yeah, crazy.
Like if you have a business and you're running it inefficiency.
Well, it's fraud. I mean, they're removing the fraud that's paying. I mean, that's why DC is like, has all this such wealth concentrated there. Is that like it's the money spigot, right?
DC sucks.
They
Didn't
can
you live
suck
there?
all the money from all of the taxpayers and then just give it to all these scams.
How long do you live in DC?
I lived there for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
It was just interesting. Like, little anecdote is when I was a commercial real estate broker out on the West Coast, we hit it hard. I mean, we were cold calling all day long. We were meeting with people. We were trying to get new business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we did all day long. And then when we had enough clients, we would just spend all day figuring out solutions for the real estate. But I went to DC and worked for a firm there, and I was amazed, without saying any names, like how little they actually did. And actually one of their biggest accounts was part of the government. And
believe it.
And I was shocked at how they sort of just sat on that account and didn't really do anything. I mean, they had relationships, but they didn't have the grit, I guess. I was just shocked at how things were done there, and it was like really stunning to see how they operated. And
they need to move all these organizations out of the same, cesspit of DC. They need to go to different places. I mean, this is crazy. that would be a wise decision if Trump is able to move more of these agencies that are all just like sitting in Washington D.C. Take the headquarters, put it here, put it there, move those headquarters all over the place. That way, there's not such a ripe systemic grift and fraud that can occur in this one location.
Without
all
like
these lobbyists and all these
handshake
people
deals that are
suck
happening.
money from the
like
taxpayer.
They all, they're all in the same fraternities in college.
Yeah.
They all
Dude,
go to
I
the same elite
hate
schools.
DC,
They
bro.
all give each other the same, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with like making really good business connections in college. I think that's part of like a big part of the thing. But I think
This one's crazy. You guys saw this one? Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin. You can go on with your take if you want. This is Carrie Lake, who is now was appointed to this Washington agency, but she basically says that they basically have the U.S. Agency for Global Media had like a whole building that was paid off and done, and like it's not even full. And then they signed a lease on this other building that's like a brand new building that they didn't need.
This is exactly
such a waste of money. Like, yeah, this is insane.
I mean, I wasn't part of any of that because
This is what he was just explaining, though.
yeah. I mean, it's like, and nobody's even there.
No,
I mean, it's just
nobody's
crazy.
there, and they're
It's
not
just-
doing any like
Yeah,
they're not doing any efficiency plans.
it's just a theft from the taxpayers. What this
What's
is
it-
just
what's it-
massive waste.
God, I can't think of the word when you're funneling money, laundering. There's literally laundering.
It's money
money.
laundering. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt about it. Crazy, absolutely insane. I forgot to add that this building is not equipped to do TV or media broadcasting. That will cost tens of millions of dollars, maybe $100 million to remedy. So go up a little bit. They said the real scandal is, Brendan Dilley here says, the real scandal is that the developer built that building with a guarantee by the federal government for the lease. I'd venture a bet that they used the future lease as proof of income to take out the loan. Find the developer, find the connection to USAID, find the kickback. That's exactly what it is. Exactly. I think he hit the nail on the head with that take.
That was explained pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
And actually, can you go to the Doge live tracker real quick just to see where we're at?
Yeah, see where we're at.
2 weeks ago, we were at 104.
105 billion, I think, is the last I saw it. Hey, we're moving up in the world.
So we found another $10 billion.
It looks so. Looks like it. Looks like we bumped it up a little bit more. This is crazy to see in real time. They just keep finding shit.
What do you think we're going to be at the end of the year?
Well, if all goes well, hopefully 500 billion.
You think 500?
That would be their goal is 2 trillion, so that's 500 billion a year. And, we're about
I think they're going to find more the first year than they would like.
Yeah, you're probably
I think
right.
they're going to find something
Yeah.
probably in the next couple of months that's going to double the number.
This is an interesting one. Did you guys see this? Protesting what? Do they even know, or simply so this is what I guess is what's happening is a lot of these paid protests is like they're paying people $40 an hour to attend these protests. It's too funny.
Shit.
It's like a Craigslist post. Right in Washington, D.C. in the location. Oh, man. What is she saying? I'm joining with thousands of others today to show support for Tesla and its employees. Love this company's mission to Elon Musk. Interesting. Paul, can you take us back to the top with more of the takes from the past day or two? So this is another one I want to talk about here, which talks about there's this whole issue right now with these judges, like, ruling on all these things. I think Stephen Miller had a great segment on, I can't remember if it was CNN or whatever, where he kind of like, it was very like they were butting heads. But basically the logic is that when it comes specifically to, like, I think there was the migrants that they were taking these gang members, and the other side claims that we don't know they're gang members or whatever, and there's this whole dispute back and forth. I mean, obviously they're not citizens of the United States of America.
Yeah.
That's the important part. But I think a judge tried to stop that. But the what they're using to justify that is this idea of an Alien Enemies Act, and I guess there's court cases on record that say, like, hey, some federal judge and like some DC district court judge has no bearing. They don't have the ability to stop anything that is being done under this act. And it's within the case law that literally says that, like, hey, like, you don't have jurisdiction over this, right? So I think this is another example of what is the actual separation of powers here? Where does this judge, can the judge who is like deals with traffic court cases, can he tell the president of the United States, like, you can't do this or you can't do that, right? Like, that's kind of the logic. That's the way I understood it, was that, like, this judge does not have any jurisdiction over this, right? And what we are indeed finding with these DC judges is there's this whole spat right now with I think Chief Justice Roberts and Trump. They're kind of like, I think Trump has said something about that, like that person should be impeached or whatever, which is, obviously a political statement that he made. And I don't think, a judge should be impeached over a decision you don't like. That being said, is the judge overstepping what his jurisdiction is, what he's legally able to do? And who decides that, right?
You're not firing or impeaching the person because what they're doing wrong. They're doing it's nor because they did something you didn't like. You're doing something because they did something that's not by the book.
Yeah. So what Chief Justice Roberts, I think, said was that we have appellate courts for that. Like we don't like, you know what I mean? Like that's what the appellate court will make that determination. And I think that's a valid point, to go to. I guess the question is, if we've got these corrupt judges in Washington, D.C., they're all like in Washington, D.C., and they all rule one way, and, they really don't have the power to make a lot of these rulings, but they're doing it anyway, and then later on getting overturned. And really, indeed, what we are finding is that, like, their daughter or their family member or their wife is getting all this USAID grant money.
Sounds like the justice system is also corrupt.
Yeah, it's just like a massive corruption, right? It's like, how can you rule on a case for the federal government when you're like your wife or your daughter, whoever, is getting all this money from the opposite side of things? And like, I think one of them like scrubbed all of her accounts afterwards. The daughter of that judge, I believe. Like, it's just so. I think she had like a foundation that was like fighting for migrant rights or something like that. And like he's like the judge that says, no, we can't do this. I mean, it's just so ridiculous.
And that's how the whole system works.
Yeah, I mean, it's just totally corrupt. I mean, you have such a conflict of interest, right? Like you have a vested interest in this. That's why you should be impeached, because you're ruling on a case where you're not impartial. You have family members that are like, the whole thing is just ridiculous.
That's why they hate Doge so much, and you can see how much they actually care about climate change when they start
firebombing Tesla.
I mean, that's how much they really believe that climate change is a immediate danger.
It was just another massive grift, another way for them
to
extract.
fucking grift.
And they made a bunch of money off it, and you can tell right now, and I love this because it's exposing it to everybody by that point recently, which is like Tesla's done more for climate change than any other company. And you're burning it because your funnel of money is getting cut off.
Exactly, One of the biggest lessons we learned from BLM Summer of Love 2020 is you cannot allow violent arson attacks on property and businesses to be contextualized as some sort of non-crime civil disobedience. Find these people, make an example, prosecute them quickly and publicly. I agree with that completely. Like, violence should always be condemned, right? A peaceful process is one thing. Which takes me to another thing I wanted to cover on and touch on, because there's another there's another whole drama controversy that's going on with this. I think that's like this dude who's pro-Hamas or he was in some organization where they kind of took over. This organization took over, like, violently barricaded themselves in this I think it was Colombia, in one of the, where they wouldn't let the kids go to class. Paul, can you go to the runway? It's one of my takes. Go to the top. I flagged it. Go down. Go down. I think it was keep going. It was the Paul Graham take, I believe. I think it's coming up. Keep going. No, it's at the very top. It was, it finds it, but it won't go to it.
That's the only Graham got in there.
Maybe it's Graham, I believe.
Spelled it wrong?
Yeah. Nope. There's an A in there.
So look, every time I type it and it doesn't show, it makes
you spelled it wrong.
You spelled it wrong. That's why. Graham. A-M. No. There's a H. No. Gra. No. Search the word Paul. You know how to spell that. That's your name.
I honestly don't know how to spell Graham any longer.
P-A-U-L. P-A-U-l.
So
G-R-A-H-M?
A-M.
No. Just search the word Paul. Search the word Paul. P-A-U-L.
I already did. Nothing showed.
Nothing showed for Paul. Go up. Is this the top of all of the takes I did? Go down slowly. Let's see here. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's Graham. There you go.
Oh, that's so funny.
Here we go. Yep, it's his top take. So he says, nope. No, not that one. No, that's the one he's pinned. No, keep going. When you searched it, it popped up right away. Yeah, when you had searched it, it was the first one that popped up.
What was it about, man?
It was his take about about free speech. It was talking basically about if you didn't defend it, then no, it was close. It was from today, Paul. It was one of his. It was like one of his posts today. It's got it. I think we might have went past it. But basically, the argument was that he was making was he's basically saying like if you were against social media censorship, like you should be against what the Trump administration is doing by deporting this guy or whatever it is.
Found it.
You found it, okay. If you didn't speak out against both woke censorship and Trump's attempts to suppress criticism of Israel at universities, you're not a genuine free speech advocate. You're just a partisan hack who pretends to care about free speech when it suits you. So then he goes, there turn out to be very few genuine free speech advocates. Nearly everyone who talked about free speech during the woke era is completely silent about it now. The fire org is a rare exception, but otherwise it's crickets. So I think there's this is not just like a black and white issue. I think that for free speech, absolutely, right? Like I support everybody's right to say what you want, right? Like say whatever you want, right? Say it in a peaceful way. If you want to peacefully say what you want, go for it. Like no doubt about it. Like we should support that no matter what. I think the separation is when things get violent, when you are preventing, when you're blocking in buildings and preventing people from going to class and doing that type of, violent behavior and barricading walls and destroying buildings. Same thing with even with January 6th, like the people who were violent, who did violent things, like, yes, those people should be punished, right? There should be some punishment for that, right? The people who did nothing violent, of course, they should have the right to freely speak, right? Paul, can you go back to the Paul Graham take? Is this his take? Scroll down a little bit. There's a video of what happened, of kind of like, this is a nice 5-minute video of showing the violence of what this guy's group was doing at the school, right? So for him to say what he wants is one thing, but when you do this to a university and you barricade a building and stop the police from coming in and start throwing chairs and destroying doors and burning out windows, can you play this video so people can actually witness and see what's going on here? I mean, this is the level of, this is what I don't agree with, right? Like, this is what should not be allowed, right? Like, you've got screaming and yelling, which is voice, that's fine. But when you're physically preventing kids from going to class and harassing them is one thing. You're harassing them, but when you're physically blocking them and doing all these other things and throwing, busting in doors and essentially just taking over an entire building where kids go to class, right? Like, just insane behavior. I mean, this is violent behavior, right? I think you see later on in the video, you see somebody's throwing a chair through the window and the door busts open and you've got NYPD and you're having standoffs with police. I mean, there's a difference between speech and peacefully protesting, which I think should absolutely be respected, even if you disagree with the message. And then also being violent, right? So I think that's an important distinction, right? So I think when Trump is against, when he's basically conditioning aid, he's conditioning aid on preventing this type of behavior, right? When you've violently taken over a building, you're barricading doors, you're doing all sorts of stuff. And I think if you watch that video and you kind of see what they've done, they've literally physically violently taken over the school here. That is not okay, right? Like that is not, behavior that is protected by free speech, right? Protected by the First Amendment. You've now moved over into violence. Trapping people in a building, doing all sorts of stuff. That's crazy behavior, right? And that guy who's not an American citizen, he's the one who was the spokesperson for that organization who did that, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's leading of violence essentially, right? So like, if you're peaceful, that's one thing, But if you're violent, that's a whole other thing. Now, I don't know where I stand on, hey, you're not an American citizen and you're, literally involving yourself in violent stuff that's happening in the United States. Like, to me, the audacity of that is insane. Like, you're not an American citizen and you are, part of an organization and involved in an organization that's, leading doing violent behavior, right? Like, it's one thing if you're just peacefully talking, which, as an American citizen, like, we have those constitutional rights. It's a question where those rights, how much of those rights non-citizens have. I think they probably, if you're, here legally in the country, you should have those rights, I think. But, it's also, you're not guaranteed to become a citizen. You can be asked to leave and go home. I do find it kind of chilling if we're using, people's free speech behavior to send people home. Although I do see if what you're saying or doing is perceived to be against the interest of the United States and you're not a citizen, I can understand the logic of that. Where do you guys fall on the spectrum? What are your thoughts?
So Americans have free speech, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So if you're not American, and you're violating a right that's for Americans, you don't get the same treatment per se as an actual citizen who has you're coming. If I went to another country and I just started it just kind of royally boils down to common sense.
Yeah.
If I go to another country and I start doing the exact same thing, that country should kick me out or do something to me, not I'm hurting their fabric of society. I'm not. To me, it's common sense, and this is bullshit. That's I would put him.
You would kick him out. You said
kick
you don't
him
feel
out.
any.
I also how long's he been here? There's other things as well.
I guess he has a green card, but he's not a citizen. I mean, he's obviously in the process of becoming a citizen, but this is not.
This is not
in
how
my
you keep
mind.
your citizen. This is all right. There's some you can get. Not everyone can do everything perfectly by the book, but there's things that are just on a totally different book that that you're doing. That's not something that should be rewarded. And if you let shit go like this, it just causes a bigger problem down the road. Because how you let this go, then you let something else go, and it just creates you did this before. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about the criticisms that he's sort of treats Netanyahu? There's that clip of him pulling out the chair for Benjamin Netanyahu, and then the way that he treats Zelensky when he comes in. It seems like he's very much more respectful of Netanyahu than maybe other world leaders. What do you think that's about?
That's a good question. I didn't watch both those interactions. I mean, I did watch the Zelensky where they
yeah, I mean that was crazy. But then the other one was Netanyahu came in and Trump's literally pulling, which you never see Trump do for anybody, right? I just wonder.
You also never see Congress give a standing ovation to any other foreign leader,
right?
Except for Netanyahu.
I watched, and I will remember one parallel to something similar that I witnessed once, which was George W. Bush when I think he was talking to some Muslim leaders or something, and he bent down and kissed a hand, or he did something like
well,
that.
the other side does that for everybody. They always kneel down and they sort of culturally appropriate.
Yeah, try to respect.
But Trump doesn't do that.
Is I don't have a problem with trying to respect other people's cultures as long as they respect our culture. You know what I mean? I don't mind being. I think it shows humility to be indifferent to show respect. Again, the question is, what's the culture? What's the scenario?
Yeah, and I guess my question is too, why do you think that is? Why is he like that towards Israel? And I wonder what kind of power or influence, and I wonder if it has to do with the Epstein stuff at all.
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess until we see all those files,
and why are those not coming out?
They were supposed to be out by now.
Because it would collapse society.
I have a take.
We're probably gonna get snuffed out on the
this.
way out of this parking lot.
I have a take on this. I think Trump's in the Epstein files.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he might be in it. I
And
think
that's why they're not
we have to be
releasing it.
careful about how many people did he interact with? We've interacted probably with criminals that we didn't know, and that doesn't make us guilty.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying I think
that is a very valid point.
Right, and he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago.
The other point too is that I think somebody made this point where they were talking about this and they were saying, listen, we have to be careful here because they were doing this with scientists, people. If somebody said, hey, you knew somebody, but you don't really know them, and they're like, hey, dude, you want to come to a fucking Caribbean island or a private island and hang out?
I'm sure that's how they did it. And then all of a sudden they're in a compromised position.
And then you're there. They've got the little fucking holes in the wall where they got the cameras, and all of a sudden they bring in fucking fucking children and shit, and they get people fucked up on drugs, and one thing leads to the next, and that fucking you've got.
You got everybody.
You trap people and did stuff.
Yeah, blackmailing everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that was part of the operation. It was, I would not be surprised if it was like if this was a joint Five Eyes, which is Five Eyes are like the U.S., I think it's Israel, I think it's Australia, I think it's Great Britain. If this was like a joint intelligence type of like psyop to get people in their pockets to be able to control people in black, I wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. And I'm sure there's some of that there, right?
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly disgusting and corrupt to stoop to this level, and I think the ends do not justify the means. Right, but the logic of these intelligence agencies is like, hey, if we can play God now, we can control politicians from behind the scenes. We have now power, right? And I'm sure in their mind they're thinking like, oh yeah, okay, well, we enabled some pedophilia, but we were able to save 100,000 lives because we controlled this guy and stopped the war here. That's the ends justify the means thinking, probably, of what's happening.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, I'm curious to see. It's hard to know. Like, even with the RFK file or the JFK files that got released, I feel like even with all those files, do we really, some circumstantial stuff there? Maybe, but
what did we really expect?
What did we really
find?
find?
But what did we expect was going to actually be in there?
People were looking for like a smoking gun,
but
right?
like, if there was a smoking gun, it wouldn't be in there.
Yeah,
like they would hide. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't.
What
know
happened?
enough
Did they not take the file? You know what I mean? Like there's so many.
Hypothetically, if let's say
so, then why would Pompeo and all these people why were they so in Trump's first term they were so hell bent on not releasing the files? So like, why, if there's really no smoking gun there,
I think it goes.
It's just because it shows the incompetence of these agencies,
I
or
think it goes another level deeper. I think there's nothing there because they know there's nothing there, and like there's something in there where it's like this. I feel like there's something else going on, and they're like they deleted files. You know what I mean? Like there's no way. Like how do you know files haven't been deleted?
You just don't know because these are like paper copies of stuff that have been sitting somewhere for 60, 70, 80 years. You know what I mean? It's like at the end of the day, and this is why I like focus on Bitcoin, because like, you can go down these fucking rabbit holes for
forever
and ever. And it is interesting to talk about, and but is it really
does it do anything beneficial?
Does it do anything beneficial
for Bitcoin?
And that's the way I think about it just in general. It's like you can just fucking spin yourself in a rope, and we can talk about this stuff for hours. But at the end of the day, it is better to have more transparency and disclosure. Right?
So how do you? So speaking of Bitcoin and kind of like going off of this, how do you think the next wave of adoption happens? Like for the people that haven't adopted it yet.
So Paul says here, spoiler, there are still redacted pages. No idea what's missing. The bottom page numbers are sequential, but top of page is not. And reading through, clearly content is missing. I'd assume other files are missing pages too. Yeah, so like I don't know if that's because they were previously released in a previous information dump, right? Like some stuff was already released. So that might be the logic of why some of them are missing pages. I just don't know. We don't know yet, right? So that's what I would think. But what were you saying?
Oh no, he was asking a question, but I can give you the answer.
I was talking about like, so we're now in 2025. It's March. How do you see the next wave of adoption for the people that haven't gotten into Bitcoin, that haven't learned? How do you see them? How can we help promote the growth and the learning? How do you see that next wave of adoption happening?
I think they're gonna have to learn by getting burned a little bit, and I think that potentially we could be heading for a deeper recession than anybody's calling for. And we have so much leverage in the system right now because of the debt that's been building up since 2008, really. And Bitcoin has only existed, Bitcoin has never seen sort of a bank run failure type of situation, like on a mass scale. And I think maybe some people, in order to really understand it, because we're at the point now where like the people that wanted to understand it have gotten into it and have read about it. There are certain people that are just not, they're just too stubborn. They're not going to look at it. They've been told over and over again. They're just not going to, they're not interested, and you can't make them interested. This is when Bitcoin shines, is like, no, we hold this for a reason. We hold this as protection against the situation that could potentially be coming, which is like a massive sort of bank failure when all of this debt gets unwound that we have. And I think Bitcoin, my big question is like, how does Bitcoin actually perform? Are we at the point where Bitcoin works? Like where people can't get their money out of the bank and the Bitcoin price just moons? I don't think that's going to happen on this round. I think what's going to happen is like people who hold dollars in treasuries and banks, or hold dollars and the banks hold treasuries, will get, if they have more money than the FDIC limit, they're going to get burned, potentially. And then and only then will they understand, like, wow, this whole thing is effed. Like, we need to have self-custody of our Bitcoin or of some type of, physical gold. Like, I'm a proponent of physical gold too. I don't think it's as good as Bitcoin, obviously. But I think that's how the next wave of adoption happens. It's like the people that get it. The people that don't get it are going to have to learn why we're promoting this so hard, which is because, like, the banks don't have your money.
But I agree. So
Yeah.
how can we get to that point?
I think it's
agree.
only by a hard lesson.
So you remember a couple of years ago, like the banks that collapsed? Remember, like we went through that? And
Silvergate.
And I mean, that was a shit ton of money and they bailed them out.
It was,
again.
but Bitcoin has never.
But no, I'm saying, the banks got bailed out again.
And the last time that this happened was 2008, but luckily it wasn't big enough. The Fed stepped in and the
Very
government
early,
stepped
it
in
was very
and
small.
brokered deals between banks,
Mm-hmm.
so that for the most part people were protected. But
Yeah.
Bitcoin hasn't.
They were protected, but the
What-
banks weren't held accountable, which just basically
Right.
continued to
But-
kick the can
but
down the road to the next
To the
one.
next one, which
Yeah.
could be this coming up in the next. I know, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5 years. And then, I think people are going to. Maybe they can't control it this time. Maybe the unwind is so great and has been building it for so long that this time it's really like, okay, we need a flush of the system, and people get hurt. Unfortunately,
I agree. People
Unfortunately.
are gonna get hurt.
and at that point for the laggards, like, that's how they're going to
So
potentially.
they're gonna have to.
They're gonna be like, wow, like, that sucked. I can't get my $1 million out of the bank. And then unfortunately they're gonna understand that it's a tool. We're not just pumping this stuff up so that we can make a lot of money. Like, that's great if we can make money too. But the reason that we like this stuff is because we know how the system generally works. And this is our insurance policy on that happening.
Mm-hmm. What do you
That's
think?
how I
Jeff?
think it's going to happen.
Well, I think it's going to happen generationally. Like, I think it's going to be generations that come up that believe more in the technology side, the new digital economy that we'll see, the way that it's integrated with, every day. I think that centralized banks do have to, in order for the older generations to take it in, we'll have to utilize it and kind of see it as leverage. But, and because there's a lot of people that don't want self-custody.
Mhm.
They can't handle that pressure of having.
It is sort of a lot of work.
Yeah.
Especially for
It's interesting when you say the word generation. It makes me think of, like, eventually we're going to be, God willing, we live long enough, we're going to be the 65-year-olds, we're going to be the 85-year-olds. And when you think of it on, like, a longer time preference like that,
Yeah.
when we are the people that grew up and are, learning and studying and holding Bitcoin, and then we have kids and grandkids, and you think of it from a generational standpoint, like, on a it's like, wow, like, we're still so fucking early.
Super.
It's like, damn. So obviously some of the older people, and we're in Naples, so, like, we're around it. It's like when that transfer of their assets comes to, like, our generation, I think, like, I don't know. I think and then I need to start thinking of that money that's trapped, and where's that money gonna go?
short Naples real estate, it's going to all go into Bitcoin when it comes to our hands.
I think we'll see new technologies that
Yeah.
allow, that depend on Bitcoin and blockchain technology to even things that we can't imagine right now that will eventually be like, oh well, this is on the blockchain, or this is on Bitcoin's blockchain. This is a real world asset backed on Bitcoin's this distributed ledger.
How close are we to, like, I mean, you all these firms, BlackRock and all that, they talk about, like, tokenized assets. I mean, how close are we to that? Is that not?
It's happening.
It's happening
Is
as
it
we
really?
speak.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's major Franklin Templeton,
Okay.
a couple other, are tokenizing bonds and different things
Yeah.
and putting them on chain on Ethereum.
Because you hear it, but I never see
Yeah.
any of those things.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're very early. It's
Okay.
very preliminary, but
Yeah.
it is possible now,
Yeah.
and it is happening.
Yeah.
So there are some of that stuff is happening
Okay.
now.
And
you know.
the technology itself is being adopted in the supply chain world of supply chain. IBM has their private blockchain that Pfizer, Renault, Home Depot, a bunch of other different companies use to kind of to autonomize essentially their supply chain, where you don't have that middleman essentially.
Mhm.
It's just done autonomously, and it's done on a distributed ledger, immutable, so you can see any changes. that
Yeah,
have
it gives
been
you
made with
permissionless to,
timestamps.
Mhm.
it's public, so you can actually see in real time. Okay, this asset moved from here to here. It came
Right.
from this source. It offers a level of transparency
Yeah.
in supply chains that I think the
It
world
could be part of this whole
definitely wants.
movement. Yeah.
Yeah. So, very interesting, very fascinating.
Yeah.
The other thing we haven't really talked about is like we're looking at this through like the U.S. lens, right? But like there's a lot of other countries out there that really need Bitcoin and that are using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I think that is for a lot of those places, right? I think the U.S. is kind of like the nicest house on a shitty street kind of thing. Like there's other problems that are much more apparent that Bitcoin is a use case for, right? So you'll get adoption slowly over time, and we've seen that from all these other nations and in different countries and different political climates and different jurisdictions all over the world.
Yeah, I think because we live in America, when we're very spoiled, Bitcoin to us is just not us like me, but more so like as like a whole. It's a way to make it. It's a investment. It's just another investment.
Exactly.
Like so, there's so many other investments in America. That's it's Bitcoin. Oh, you're just whatever. I'm investing in Apple, whatever it is. But to other people in other countries, that same technology is giving them the ability to store their wealth, to transact, to own an actual asset, and not have to worry about someone stealing their gold or whatever it may be. So it just means Bitcoin, which is really cool. It's something. It's for everyone, but not only is it for everyone. How everyone interacts with it is different, and that's like the biggest thing. Is like everyone can benefit in a different way from it, but everyone can benefit as long as you're in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on that point, I'm sort of like a traditional Catholic guy, and whether I'm sure you know this because you're in touch with stuff, but like they were definitely coming in the previous administration, like they were sending in agitators into the church, and because domestic terrorists, conservative
astroturfers,
and into school boards and stuff like that, and it's like I don't want us to have Bitcoin and like no one else have it. Like I want everyone to have it, but I want to make sure that we have it too because we deserve the same protection that everyone else has. Like
no doubt,
our enemies will have it too, and that's fine,
freedom
and
technology.
that's okay.
Bitcoin's for everybody.
It's for everybody,
and the world works better when that happens.
But it's how we can all have different views and different beliefs and things like that, and coordinate with each other without killing each other. I mean, like right now, without Bitcoin, honestly, if we didn't have Bitcoin right now, everybody's at odds with each other. No hope. Everybody's condemning each other for all these different things. We have all people upset because of inflation and the economy's bad. I mean, if we didn't, honestly, I think about this. If we didn't have Bitcoin, it would be a dark place. It really would.
Yeah, Bitcoin is truth money. It really is. I mean,
and whether you're Jewish or you're Muslim, whatever I don't care. I want you to have Bitcoin too.
Yeah,
that's how we all get along. And how we can all
have
our different beliefs.
Yeah, I want you to know what I know, but like I didn't know what I knew until I took that time again to learn it.
And go practice your beliefs and go do that and be peaceful about it. I don't care. You should do that. You should do that. But I want to be able to do that too.
Interesting. So talking about this and money and all that, I was talking to, I forgot who I was talking to the other day, and they were bringing up like in the Bible at the end times there was a one currency for the world. Do you think Bitcoin is that?
Well, we have a one world currency right now too. Not to scare anybody.
I was like, that's interesting. Like, do you think that is the time where it's like, hey, Bitcoin is the answer? Like, in that maybe Bitcoin is what the Bible is portraying.
It could be, and that could go on for another 2,000 years. Bitcoin might have so much adoption by then that Bitcoin is the thing, but humans are corrupt, and they'll find a way to screw up the world, even with Bitcoin in it.
More so, like if that is,
I mean, I think Bitcoin is a technology that's going to make the world a better place.
Yeah, it's a tool.
At the end of the day, it's a tool. It's a great freedom tool. It's just in the words of Satoshi, Bitcoin gives us this front for freedom,
right?
For the electronic age. I think he said something. I'm paraphrasing.
It's a big tool too.
But,
that's why people are like, all you care about is Bitcoin. It's like, no, I have higher beliefs.
Yeah,
but it allows me to do the bigger things, and it doesn't discriminate, and it's peaceful and
peaceful. It's a big part of Bitcoin. It's an opt-in system, right?
It's a
no
tool.
one's going to force you to adopt Bitcoin.
We don't worship. I think we get sometimes as maxis or whatever, you get criticized as like worshiping Bitcoin or like your it's your idol. No, this is a really strong, powerful tool for us to move forward from where we're at right now, which is total chaos.
Yeah. I think it just again highlights the fact that they don't know what's really going on and they don't care to know. And when you don't pay attention, what's it called? It's like ignorance is bliss. They just have no idea. And that's what we're talking about. It's going to have to take some hurt. And then, how it happens. Price goes up. All of a sudden you start hearing about people, oh, I'm going to buy Bitcoin. Should I buy Bitcoin now? Should I buy Bitcoin? It's like, yeah, you should. But you should have bought it at 100. Like Michael Saylor says, I'll be buying the top forever.
Yeah.
So
I think too, like, I always wonder if Bitcoin, if this is Bitcoin's time. It kind of feels like it, but people always say that towards the top of
Mhm.
market cycles is like, is this the time when things really sort of, maybe the market crashes in terms of Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin goes so high that, yeah, everything crashed in relative to Bitcoin. But then I started thinking that's kind of like Moon Boys talk, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Bitcoin's so decorrelated from the market that if there is a downturn that it wouldn't get hit temporarily. But we all know the response to that is more money printing. So it's like,
Yeah.
how long can you weather the storm?
Yeah, that's the thing. The time preference at the end of the day. Are you looking for in a day, a week? What's your time preference? If as long as you zoom out.
Paul, let's close on some educational content. Did you have the picture of the coins? Where's like the meme? It says if you don't know what this is, I think you just went by it.
What are
Yeah.
you talking about?
If you understand this, you are deep into the rabbit hole. So anybody want to unpack this?
I think they're referring to, I just saw that for the first time, but I think they're referring to the way that they used to shave the money down for inflation purposes.
So, I mean, the Romans did this.
Yep,
They would essentially take the coinage and they would remint it. And what the government would do is they take all the coins and they would cut off some of the precious metal.
Just think about
and
cutting cocaine.
Yeah, they reissue it. And say it has the same value, right? So even on our
we've been
our
being debased
coins
since
today,
the beginning
yeah.
of time.
Yeah, they're putting these little ridges on the edge to
Yeah.
see if it's been
yeah.
clipped, right?
Yeah.
If they've stolen it from you, right?
Gotcha.
This is level 2. Oh my goodness. Guy from Family Guy. Money printing plus corruption equals inflation. Inflation is the modern equivalent of a clipped coin. There you go. So, guys, I got to head to another meeting, but this has been a fantastic conversation, and thank you all for coming today.
Thanks.
The runway.
Let's do it.